All right, today I'm joined by Julian. So, Julian, thanks so much for joining us today. So, start by kind of telling us about yourself and your background.
Well, hey Andrew, it's so nice to be here, and thank you for having me. I started my career out actually as a consultant, coming out of Chico State, California. Graduated in 1998, and I always laugh when I say consultant because I am 23 years old, and people are hiring me to tell them how to implement ERP. And these are the times where you're going from paper to computers. I literally was, and I have a degree in instructional technology, so I was teaching how do you go from this process to that process, and also redesigning the business processes. So amazing. I was teaching people how to use a mouse. This is a mouse, if you believe it or not. That was what was going on back then. From there, I was lucky enough to be recruited by the gentleman who got my father his first job at HP way back in the day, to a company called Dejima, which was working with the foundational technology of Siri, an agent-oriented architecture for natural language processing. And that's where I actually hired a good friend of mine from Chico State named Darren Haas. I'm sure many of you will hear about him. I know you know Darren, who's had an amazing career. And together we were working on large language models back in 2000, which if you think about it, it's pretty wild. And one of the biggest problems there was that the market wasn't there. We had to go out and do hear many of these stories to create a market instead of doing product market fit, which we all hear about it. Think about market to fit the product, which is totally backwards. That journey was amazing because we finally hit on an amazing idea, which was using NLP on Blackberries back in the day to use email and SMS, natural language, to access Salesforce.com, update records, get data reports. First product that Mark Benioff ever licensed, and that was in 2002. From there, I went on to actually work with my father, license patents to software companies, and that's where I got into sales because I was the business guy, he's the technologist. So I got out and I had to go close deals, and I ended up selling some really big deals to Boeing, Bombardier, John Deere. And as a 25-year-old, man, it was quite the experience because I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm talking to these big wigs that you're looking at me like, who's this kid? And that's where I cut my teeth. Now, unfortunately, that company fell apart in 2008 with the crash. So we had to sell off part of the consulting part of the business, but retain the technology and the IP. And I'm very proud to say to this day, my father still makes $1 million a year retired in royalty checks.
Wow.
So that's where I cut my teeth. And that's where I fell in love with sales. And I decided, where do I go to learn this craft and get better at it? And I had a lot of relationships at Salesforce.com for my previous job. And I got my first sales job there. And that was the pivotal moment in my career because I call Salesforce.com the grinder, because you get in there and it is the most pressure you can ever imagine. You probably heard the phrase, what have you done for me lately? That's every minute. And you have to perform. So I was there. I did 2 tours of duty over an 8-year period, 1 stint in between working with a company called ChargePoint. If you have an electric car and you charge it, ChargePoint. I built their North American sales team in about 11 months. But I wanted to get back into the entrepreneurial part of startups. It's what I love, the creative aspect of it. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I think you got to be if you're in sales because of the peaks and the valleys. I've been poor. I've been sort of wealthy. I've been wealthy, then I've been poor. I mean, it's a wild ride, but I love it. But the challenge there, this was a AI that was designed initially for financial trading. It was one of the first kind of AI driven quants. Now we had to pivot because that wasn't working. So we pivoted to AI for visual recognition. And what we did was we developed an MVP that could recognize all of the different vectors, 300 some odd vectors in an image. Wow. And we decided, hey, let's pitch this and let's go out to a number of different retail companies that are selling products online and learn from them. And this is the theme you'll hear from me often, which is the voice of the customer is paramount when you're trying to figure things out, identifying use cases that have real, true business impact. And instead of designing a product and thinking we're doing it right, I toured the country and the world with our head of product and went and met with the likes of Luxottica, to Zappos, to Adidas, to Nike, you name it. Ended up selling our first deal with an MVP to Zappos, where we found a head of UI that was very innovative. And he's the one that came up with the use cases. The idea being that you could navigate visually, because we all know that tagging images, you're speaking one language and not everyone looks at the same color or the same shoe or something and describes it the same way. So it's broken. This way you can click on an image, recognize the exact hue, texture, shapes of a product. And then when you're checking out, for example, a woman's checking out, she bought a set of red heels. She checks out, she's presented with a red clutch by a different brand with the exact same hue and texture. Boom, buys it. So initially that's business impact. And from there, we went on to sell that product, the likes of Luxottica, Adidas, and so on. Very successful. From there, I followed our chief data scientist to a company called Opal that he started. So I was a founding member of that team. And that was a product where we were automatically building AI models. So we could literally point the platform at training data and it would develop algorithms automatically. Wow. Using all the different types of algorithms and training tools that you can imagine. I won't get into all of those. That would be more for a technical person. I'm a bit technical, but I get my foot stuck in my mouth pretty quickly. So we won't go there. But again, ahead of its time. Managed to sell an MVP, again, $1 million a year ARR with MVPs to the likes of DuPont, companies like that. But it was going out and getting to the right person and having them define the use case, and then us build the product to fit that use case.
So you've obviously had a long career. These are all great examples. And so as we go through this and we're up to today, what are you excited about today with AI? Because you've been leveraging NLP and image recognition for a long time. So what excites you today about AI?
Well, what excites me, number one, is I'm no longer having to go out and create a market. There's a market that's ready to go. So now we're into fitting the product into the market, true product market fit exercises. And the fact that the infrastructure is there, the compute is there, everything that we need to actually execute on the brilliant ideas people are coming up that are changing the game. Also, it's the appetite and the level of investment that the largest companies in the world are putting into this. And it's top of mind for everybody. So it's a conversation that is really fun to have and people want to have it. So it's made the job even more enjoyable.
Okay, so now, as you're obviously you're in San Francisco, you're near the Valley, you're tapped into IT, what's going on there. So as you're hearing, startups and traditional organizations trying to adopt AI, what are you hearing about the challenges and the concerns today around AI?
Well, I think the biggest aspects of it are training data is a must. There's a lot of training data out there, but it's finding the right training data and the right volumes depending on the use case and the application you're designing. But I think the biggest one is finding use cases with business impact. That is the biggest challenge because AI, I believe, still is a buzzword, if you will. When I was starting off at Salesforce.com, big data was the buzzword. Now we've got AI as a buzzword. And the only reason it's a buzzword is because there are so many different ideas out there. Some of them are working, some of them aren't. But everyone's pressing down so hard and investing so much money in it because it's top of mind. But that's what makes it exciting because if you're an entrepreneur and you want to get into something where you have the chance to be creative, it's the right place to be.
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about, you obviously with a great career, you pivoted a lot and get a lot of different contexts, but for a student who's coming out right now in this new world, what do you suggest to them? What skills do they need? What kind of experience do they have to really be competitive in this AI world that we live in today?
So I'm going to talk about it from a business impact because if you try, I could not read code if you paid me $1 million. So I'll start there. And it's coming in with the mindset. I call it the beginner's mindset. You need to come in with a beginner's mindset, which is being open and coming in and asking questions and trying to pull out pains in a business. Try to focus in a particular area if you have that idea and that's your strength, that's your core area of focus in your education. Let's say that's economics, or let's say that's law, or whatever it is, okay? You want to focus on that area and you want to get out and talk to the leaders in these spaces. But not only the biggest of the biggest companies, you want to go interview and not interview, excuse me, speak with folks that are in the medium to large size enterprises that are getting started. They also are creative and innovative. You get the big, larger, stodgy old companies. They do have very innovative people they've brought in, but it's going to be a different flavor of use case. But number one thing is you want to get exposed pain. You want to find the challenges they're facing that AI can solve, not necessarily the flavor of AI you have in mind, but that AI can solve and will deliver a fiscal impact to the bottom line.
Okay, so you raise this kind of thread this whole time of the business impact and the business value, and I think that's obviously a key component here. But what excites you the most as we kind of look forward with AI? What areas do you think are going to be exciting, and where are you excited to kind of see the technology evolve?
I think it's the most exciting thing to me is empowering people to be better and more impactful. I use this word impactful quite a bit. You'll hear that a lot. Impactful and game changing, more game changing than they ever thought possible. So you have this opportunity to use AI to supercharge yourself. And I think about that first. So when I'm looking at AI products that I use for my own business and my own personal life, they are very purposeful with choosing ones and being willing to pay for them that actually make me better at what I do, make me into a better businessman, business person, but also a better human at the same time. So those are the two things that get me the most fired up about it. But I am extremely creative. That's what I thrive on, is creativity. That's what's got me exciting, because we are just at the tip of this. We are just scratching the surface right now.
And I think we share that same level of excitement that the future is going to be really interesting. And it's also interesting that you brought up this notion of humanness, right? And I think there's a lot of concern about the future of humanity as we think about AI. How do you think about the relationship between technology, humanness, AI? How do you process that all through? Are we seeing the end of humanity with AI, or what do you think about this whole process?
So I don't think, I mean, if we could go into the Terminator mindset here, we've seen dogs that have flamethrowers and rockets attached to them, robots. Thank you, Elon. But at any rate, I think it's, I have two boys, 13 and 15. So I'm already seeing it. And I'm seeing some negatives and some positives. The negatives are that some of the skills that I grew up developing because I didn't have that technology in my hand, they're lacking. And I'm having to spend time taking away those things from them and forcing them to use their minds. But in general, I'm not so fearful of it. I believe that it's something that we all have to think about in terms of our career paths and where we want to go. I think, yes, many jobs, many different roles that there are in business and in life are going to be replaced by AI. So I think it's a new way of thinking about how can you get involved and pick a career and choose what you want to focus on, where AI will be a weapon in your arsenal. It is not something that replaces you.
Excellent. Well, hi, Julian. I really appreciate your time today. Great insights and what a great story about your career and everything else. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Pleasure to be with you.